Yep.
That's a green light. And we're live and we're here to talk about, well, impeachment. I mean, that's all anybody's going to be talking about all day. We're just doing it, early. It's nice living on the East Coast where we can get a 3 hour head start on California. And I can talk about stuff like this before Ben Shapiro even thinks about getting out of bed.
I mean, to be fair, Ben's probably already out of bed.
Maybe. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's 3:52 there.
I see a world where Ben Shapiro gets up at 4 o'clock on days like this.
Probably. Anyway, so Donald Trump got impeached yesterday, and still your president.
Yeah, and will probably continue to be your president because it's going to go over to the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans. And I mean, it's a big deal, but golly, there's just so much here to chew through that it's almost taxing. Like I really enjoy doing this, but in situations like this where it, again, I'm going to reference Tim Pool, but he's talked about how we're seeing the same screen, but for some reason we're watching two totally different movies. Well, the movie that I'm watching is that the evidence against the president is, I mean, at its most charitable, is weak. And I think once we move out of the most charitable position, it's non existent. So, I mean, one world leader called another world leader and said, hey, there's this corrupt thing going on that might involve some of our politicians and some of your politicians, and we need you to take a look at it. I mean, isn't that what we elect world leaders to do? And I don't just mean like the American president. I mean like the Ukrainian president as well. The guy ran as an anti-corruption candidate. So if I don't know, Elliot Ness, and I'm trying to figure out a way to take on the mob, and somebody comes to me and says, hey, I think I might have a tip for you on how to go after the mob. What? Because I'm untouchable? I'm not going to give the guy 5 minutes to listen to what he has to say? It just, this whole thing is a sham from the floor up. Like, okay, just for starters, the basic claim here is that there was some type of bribery. We withheld foreign aid because Donald Trump is afraid of Joe Biden. That all by itself has got so much stuff packed into it. Like, do we know that Joe Biden is even going to be the candidate? And what? Okay, so you run for office and now you're immune from prosecution, and um, well, what? We just don't want world leaders to communicate with one another in a frank manner. Like, just everything about it is like, I mean, come on, people. What is even going on here? Well, I mean, what's going on here is before Donald Trump was ever even sworn in, there were people talking about, we'll impeach him, we'll impeach him, we'll impeach him.
Yeah, it was a foregone conclusion. Uh, God, I mean, there were talks. There was talk of impeaching Trump if he won before he was elected. And I mean, frankly, the just unhinged nature of this Democratic contingent, it would not surprise me at all to see them talking about it before he was even the candidate. Oh, oh, oh! We have seen that. In fact, we've had that testified to under oath with the whole Carter Page debacle. They talked about the insurance policy against a President Trump before he was nominated, before he even won the
Yeah,
primary.
yeah, and Carter Page, man, just that whole thing by itself. Like, turns out that the guy was actually a CIA asset the whole time, and that the FBI lied and changed that information on the FISA application to, like, we wouldn't even be here if the the whole process hadn't been corrupted. And while impeachment is not a strictly legal proceeding, and it's set up that way on purpose, it does function a lot like a legal proceeding. And there's the fruit of the poison tree, which means, if somebody's investigating you for a crime, and they use unethical or illegal methods to gather evidence against you, well, all that evidence is the fruit of the poison tree and cannot be used against you. And so everything about this entire process has been a joke from the floor up and should be invalid, because we wouldn't even be here like 2 years of Marussia, 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 and then all of a sudden, oh, wait, it's actually Ukraine. I swear 90% of this impeachment narrative was drafted 3 years ago, 4 years ago. They literally just needed one or two Lego pieces to fall into their lap in order to plug it in, and we're off to the races. You think that's part of why Nancy Pelosi's debating not sending it over to the Senate? Because
Hey, funny story. What's that? Pelosi refuses to commit to sending articles of impeachment to Senate. So she says some progressives.
talk, sir. You're good at it. I've heard you do it for hours at a time.
Sorry. Some progressives have urged Democrat leaders to withhold the articles until Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Kentucky Republican, agree. Here, we'll do it. I'll do my Adam Schiff impression. Some progressives have urged Democratic leaders to withhold the articles until Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell agrees to vote for impeaching the president. Oh, wait, no, that's not what it says. That's just. I just made that up. It was a parody. Agrees to procedures for the Senate trial that Democrats have called for.
It was a bullshit parody.
See, the House got to write their own rules on how to conduct an impeachment. Conducted the impeachment, impeached the president, and now is basically saying we're not going to let the Senate have the impeachment so that the work can be finished unless they agree to do it our way. What? No. That's not how any of this works.
Well, they're playing for all the marbles here. I mean, they're so far out. Like, they've reached F-bomb alert, but they've reached fuck it stage. Like, they're so far out over their skis, they have said, fuck it. What's one or two more things that are crooked? Like, the people that don't buy this already aren't going to buy it. So why not just jump in with both feet, see what we can get done? Because if they can make Mitch bend even the slightest bit on this, they have a chance. So tactically, they don't lose anything. Now, it could backfire, because if it doesn't go over to the Senate, it's not the Republicans that are going to be angry about it. It is the Democrats. They're going to be like, well, then what was all that for? It could end up being the largest collective red pill in modern history.
Wouldn't that be beautiful? Now that I would call a total win. Now, here's the thing about this. It's what the Democrats are demanding is that certain witnesses be brought in before the Senate. So they're demanding fact witnesses. They're demanding testimony. What they're demanding is evidence. They want evidence. They want to essentially to continue the investigation. But you already voted for impeachment. Are you telling me that you voted for impeachment without evidence? So
Well, yeah.
You don't have enough evidence?
Well,
You
that's
don't have
exactly
enough
what they're telling
evidence?
you.
Okay. Okay. When George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin in self-defense, the prosecutor in Florida, the DA in Florida, after the police at the scene ruled the incident to be one of clear-cut self-defense, and did not even hold Zimmerman for questioning because it was a case of clear-cut self-defense. He was attacked. He was made to fear for his life, and he fired his weapon to protect himself. And that was the decision, that was the conclusion of the police investigation at the scene. When the prosecutor, when the DA refused to capitulate, he was fired and replaced by another attorney who was a diehard Democrat supporter, power hungry, politically greedy, who agreed to prosecute. Now, part of the responsibility of a prosecutor is that you do not pursue prosecution against someone unless you have a reasonable expectation that you can secure a conviction. What is happening here is clearly, if it was not already clear to you, what is happening here is that essentially the House Democrats are pursuing prosecution without evidence sufficient to expect a conviction. That's irresponsible. And for a lawyer, which the vast majority of these individuals are, it is deeply and profoundly professionally unethical. Wow, I was expecting to make more jokes out of Nancy holding on to the impeachment and not letting it go, but
Well, it's not communion wine. Or who knows? Maybe she thinks it is.
I was about to say I would have expected her to let go of this a little quicker. I do want to. I'm going to play just a little bit of the clip that's just a little bit of a clip that I have pulled up here. This is Pelosi talking about the whole thing. Oh dear. Oh no.
Today that came to a culmination on the floor of the House.
There we go.
With the Judiciary Committee under the leadership of Jerry Nadler of New York and the Intelligence Committee under the leadership of Adam Schiff of California brought the articles of impeachment to the floor to a conclusion where they have passed. I thank them for their tremendous leadership. I thank Chairwoman Maxine Waters of California, Richie of the Financial Services Committee, Richie Neal of Massachusetts, the chair of the Ways and Means Committee.
I mean, seriously, they couldn't convince her to just stay sober for this?
I know, right? Nancy, only have one bottle. Don't start bottle number 2 until after the press conference.
And here's Politico. Sure, the pundits all know what the Senate's going to do next. Here's why Trump's impeachment still matters. Okay, yeah, it set precedent. It matters because, well, this is the precedent. Every Republican president that is elected for the foreseeable future, and we're talking for the next 50 to 100 years, will face impeachment by the Democrats for no reason other than Democrats going to Democrat. They're gonna register the dead to vote. They're gonna oppose voter ID and voter registration. They're gonna have their criminal aliens in their sanctuary cities go and vote twice. And they're gonna try and undo every result they don't agree with. We don't have this expectation because we have a low opinion of the current crop of Democrats. We have this expectation because it is just what's been established. Talk about setting a precedent. The precedent that has been set is that Democrats impeach the Republican president. Democrats have impeached every elected Republican president, or attempted to impeach. They have introduced articles of impeachment against every elected Republican president since Eisenhower. Now, Snopes rates that statement as untrue. Well, they rate it as mostly false. And their basis for that is that no such articles were brought against Gerald Ford. But I remind you, the statement that I just made is articles of impeachment have been introduced against every elected Republican president. Gerald Ford wasn't elected. Excuse me. 'Tis the season.
Yeah, you know what this proves? And I think this might even be a good point to go out on because I'm about to have to go dad.
Yeah.
This proves something we've talked about a lot. The left can't win the argument. Now, when I say that, what I mean is if we base things on fact and evidence and logic and history and so forth, the left literally can't win the argument. Flattening out the tax code does lead to economic growth. Economic growth actually leads to more money going into the federal treasury. Taxing the rich doesn't pay for things. It is a purely punitive measure.
And it lowers the amount of revenue going into the federal coffers. And just real quick, that statement, the thing that Cameron's talking about, that's not a theory. That's not, we expect that these things work counterintuitively in this way. That is the record of history. Every time taxes are reduced, revenues increase. Every time taxes are increased, revenues are reduced. You cannot create something by detracting from it, right?
So yeah, they can't win the argument on facts, and it's not just everything about the paradigm from the right and the left is, I would describe it right now as it's a situation of responsibility, and who's responsible for what. You are responsible for you is the general consensus on the right. And the general consensus on the left is, no. Everybody is responsible for everybody. Well, you have a red model, you have a blue model. The red model works. Like Donald Trump came in, slashed a bunch of regulations, and we literally have the best economy that we've had in 50 years. The man is on track to surpass Ronald Reagan. He's on track to surpass what Clinton takes credit for in the dot-com boom. And he did it by following simple conservative principles, which in this case means get out of the way, let people do people, let markets do markets, and it will work itself out from a utilitarian perspective. The largest amount of good will be done. The left can't win the argument on family values because the truth is a mom and a dad produce the most stable children. The left can't win the argument. No, dude. You don't have to have a nuclear family to have children. That just requires doing the do. And then the welfare state comes along and pays for everything.
It still requires a mom and a dad.
Well, it requires a sperm and an egg. It doesn't necessarily require a mom and a dad in the higher sense of those two words. But the left literally can't win the argument on the facts. The vast majority of the things that the leftists want not only are untenable, But if you drill down into them, they're actually immoral. They create more of the problem they're trying to solve. 50 years of a war on poverty, and what do we have? Roughly the same amount of quote unquote poverty as when we started. It's done nothing. All
No,
the
it
aid.
hasn't done nothing. It hasn't done nothing. Let's not forget, we also have a national debt that is almost penny for penny identical to the cost of the war on poverty since its inception.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it goes all the way back to, I'm blanking on his name, but after 8 years of FDR's own, I want to say it's Morgenthau, Henry David Morgenthau Jr. I can't remember his name, but he wrote in his own diary that the whole spending money model doesn't work because we've spent money and spent money and spent money, and it hasn't improved anything. And now we've got a large debt on top of everything else. And so we know this doesn't work. They can't win the argument on the merits. So this is what they have to do. They've got to do an emotional power play. Because if they don't have the emotional power play, they don't have a play at all. Bernie Sanders and all his, oh, I'm going to pay for this, and I'm going to pay for that, and I'm going to pay for this, and I'm going to pay for that. That all sounds real good on the surface. But then once you drill down, and you realize basically everybody's going to have a minimum of a 50% tax rate and up. Well, now all of a sudden people are like, oh, wait, no, maybe I don't want this. This sounds like a terrible idea. And that's why they lose. That's why Bernie Sanders has to talk about the free college portion of it, the part that is emotionally appealing. Because if he actually gets down into the math, like, it's a joke. You can go to Bernie Sanders' website and put yourself in his calculator, and I guarantee you, you're going to show as though you have more disposable income. Now, how we get from here to there, his calculator doesn't show you because, well, it's a lie, and that's what commies do. They lie. But anyhow, point is, the left can't win on substance. They have to win on emotional appeal, and this is like the Hail Mary bomb so that they can avoid the 6-3, 7-2 majority that will appear on the Supreme Court if Trump wins re-election. Anyhow, that's all I got. Impeachment. It's a joke. It's the fruit of the poison tree. Nothing in this process is legitimate. The only reason we're even here is because of everything that came before it. This would have just been another phone call. Like what? Obama didn't make phone calls like this. W didn't make phone calls like this. Clinton didn't make phone calls like this. I mean, whenever the telephone was invented, phone calls like this started happening between world leaders. Hey, I need you to do us a favor. Even if he said, I need you to do me a favor. Well, I mean, honestly, who cares? That's their job. And again, just not just the U.S. leader's job, but every leader's job. They're elected to lead their country. I'm done. It's ridiculous.
So basically, Donald Trump is being impeached for attempting to cooperate with for attempting to solicit the cooperation of a foreign power in the positive interest of both powers.
Right. Exactly. Because, somehow a guy that set a strip club on fire a couple of weeks ago with his crack pipe ended up on the board of an oil company in a foreign nation. But that's I really have to call it. I have people that want cereal.
All right, brother.
Later.
We'll see you tomorrow. Time to go to work, boys.
Boys, they're dressed from the waist down, so they just